All right, everybody, we are live with the Working Fans Podcast. And before we get started today, special shout out to Plainfield Mobile Truck Service, LLC. My man Dan bailed my ass out this week. I could not get anybody to work on my truck. I was down. I was out. Finally got another company to quote me. He did it, though, for half the price in half the time, and he did twice the work. Shout out to Dan. We love you here at the Working Fans Podcast.
I would have done it for a third.
That's I heard that about you. You're a good man. But you know what else was working for me this week? I'll tell you what was working for me this week.
Hey, Dubby. I love my Dubby. If you can't tell, I'm already drinking some currently right now. If you can't see the camera, that's what's in this jug. That's use the code fans working. Get 10% off. That is the key to this. You got to go to the site, though. When you go to the site is, sorry, I'm going stupid for a second. It is w.gg. That's, for some reason, it's not on my list here. So give me a second.
w.gg is the website, and use code.
All right.
It is w.gg. Use the code fans working. I was not ready for this. He went to it much quicker than I was expecting him to. It is w.gg. You can get all the energy, all the mojo that you need for the day, and it's going to do it without giving you jitters, guys. So please check out the site, w.gg. Use the promo code fans working, save 10%, and then you won't be caught off guard like I was.
Yes, don't get caught off guard. No jitters. And speaking of people that had no jitters this week, I'm talking about Will Ospreay, Speedball Mike Bailey. Bound for Glory was this past weekend, and wow, what a show these guys had, man. There was a lot of buzz for this afterwards, and AJ, did you get to see any of Bound for Glory?
I did not watch Bound for Glory, unfortunately. I did hear about the match. I was in utter shock. I couldn't believe that these two guys could put on a match like that. I mean, Lord knows that they're not two of the best wrestlers in the world right now. So good for them for stepping up for once. But I don't think that's the big news coming out of Bound for Glory.
We'll get to that big news shortly. Hold the phone. That's in another segment. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this card. All right. Chris Sabin defeated Kenta. PCO, who just re-signed with, we'll call it Impact Wrestling.
Well, the funny thing is people did not know that PCO re-signed before the match. So a lot of people were shocked that PCO went over. And then it was announced afterwards that he had re-signed. So it was a nice little surprise victory for PCO.
Jordan Grace won the Gauntlet Call Your Shot Battle Royal, beat Bubba Ray Dudley there. We did see the return of Sonny Kiss, who was involved in that. Matt Cardona made an appearance. So a lot of fun surprises there. Trinity defeated Mickie James. I have this feeling this is going to be Mickie James's last match with the company. I think she'll be possibly going
Where else could she possibly be going?
Just saying, possibly going to join her husband. We'll see.
Where's her husband at?
He might be on SmackDown. Might be the new GM. Hey,
might be able to see him tonight.
Might be able to see him tonight. What about the main event? Were you surprised? I was a little surprised. Alex Shelley retains the Impact Championship over Josh Alexander.
I actually was not overly surprised. Alex Shelley's been a hell of a champion for him. He's doing a workhorse amount of work between. It's funny, the Motor City Machine Guns have the freaking championships, not the tag titles. They've got the X Division and the World Championship. So great to see both of them doing very well.
Yeah, no doubt. It was a fun card. Joe actually got me checking this out the other day, and he was texting me, and I wasn't home yet. And by the time I got home, it was the Gauntlet Battle Royal, and that was a lot of fun. But
there's some nice surprises in the Gauntlet Battle Royal too, from what I read. So
yeah. But I think the big news that you want to jump the gun on that everybody's talking about is it's a return of total nonstop action. TNA TNA. AJ, were you surprised that we're going back to TNA?
So here's the funny thing. I mean, I'm somewhat surprised because they made such a big deal out of changing the name. However, the fact that most people still refer to it as TNA and not Impact is just smart branding. At some point, you have to give in and give the people what they want. And people love TNA. Impact's a TV show. TNA was the freaking flagship.
Absolutely. Hey, I had this theory. I think I was telling a few people off there. The NWA is rumored to go to the CW, right? And they have somebody in a small promotion as part of their territory system, and NWA's in that. Wouldn't it be something if NWA and TNA pulled together and you could
merged again?
You could get Punk, Will Ospreay. You have the CW. You have the TNA. You could do some crazy things.
We got to remember, TNA when it started was part of the NWA to begin with. So it literally bring it back around full circle.
Absolutely. I'm very excited though to see what direction TNA goes in. IQ, I was a little surprised though, because like you said, they did make such a big deal out of the rebranding. I kind of thought, TNA. What's up,
guys? The interesting thing to me is it's not genuinely good TNA if you don't have any Dixie Carter.
Well, hey, I look forward to seeing what TNA is going to happen. But thank you, Randy. Thank you for a great segue. What's up, guys? Are you going to AEW Collision tomorrow? Are we going?
We indeed are. We will actually be up in a luxury box. I sent down an invitation actually to Randy, but he never got back to me. Yeah, it's a shame. I would have given him a ticket. But we are going to see MJF versus Kenny Omega. And this is a chance for Kenny Omega to stop MJF from breaking the streak. Dave, do you think it's possible that MJF doesn't break the longest title reign that Kenny Omega currently holds?
Absolutely not. I think it's a layup. MJF is walking out with the championship.
It would kind of put a little bit of a damper on the Jay White MJF match that they've been building to for weeks.
They were booking him for matches with. Samoa Joe wants his match. The Guns want a shot at the Ring of Honor tag titles. So, yeah, it's whatever. I look forward to it. It should be a hell of a match. Kenny will tear it down. But no, I can't see that Kenny's going to stop this streak.
Now, am I the only one who was watching Dynamite and saw Okada on Dynamite and is like, tell us he's coming to Collision. Tell us he's coming to Collision.
No, I don't think we're going to get that, unfortunately. I think we're getting...
It was an interesting angle at the back, at the end of it, that leads me to believe that there's going to be more Okada in AEW with that stuff with Bryan Danielson at the end.
Absolutely. But... we'll see what happens. They're probably setting up a big show for the Tokyo Dome, possibly too. Yes, in the end, we will be at AEW Collision tomorrow. We think MJF is going to end a streak. He will be victorious. And
Dave told me the only thing he's excited about tomorrow, though, is the Ring of Honor TV tapings.
I can't wait. You know what else was fun this weekend? You know what else was exciting this weekend? Halloween Havoc, baby.
Yeah, this weekend, that was great on Tuesday.
Good point. Chase University walks out with the tag team titles. AJ.
Which was more shocking to you? Chase University winning the tag titles
or
Laya Valkyrie winning the women's NXT championship?
We'll get to that in a minute. That's going to get its own separate segment. We're gonna
No, I know. I just want to know which was more exciting. Which one was more shocking to you?
Okay, we'll get to it right now. Laya Valkyrie, Becky Lynch. We'll cover this right now. That upset was a lot more exciting to me, mainly because this is going to maybe rub people the wrong way. I'm not that big into Chase U. I think they're funny. They're a cute little thing on NXT, but they remind me of, you remember in the old days, this is dating ourselves, but our fans, Tex Slashinger and Shanghai Pierce on the WCW Saturday nights and the center stage crowds. Whenever I think it was Slashinger, which was Phineas Godwin, would start hitting people, they go, ooh, ah, ooh. That's what this reminds me of.
It's even the same kind of arena, for Christ's sakes.
What's that?
It's even the same kind of arena being there at Full Sail.
Yeah, it's just whatever.
But my
they're
question wasn't which one were you more excited about. I knew which one you were more excited about. Which one surprised you more?
Chase U. I don't expect.
Yeah, I did not see them going over. I thought that somehow the girls were going to turn on them and end up costing them, especially when the tire iron came out.
But I was surprised at Lia Valkyrie too. I will just say the thing with Valkyrie was they've done such a good job of building up Becky, and they've been dropping hints with Jade. I kept expecting that match. The thing with Lyra, as we built towards that night, they were doing such a good job of making it feel important for her. It started me thinking, maybe she could pull this off. I wasn't completely sold, but I guess I had a little.
Not only that, but there's been all kinds of talk about how banged up Becky is. Right. Think about the matches that she had with Trish Stratus, and then she's wrestling freaking two different places a week, plus live events, plus being on the road, being a mom. She's getting literally the crap beat out of her. At some point, you got to pull back the reins a little bit and protect the man from herself.
I'll say this before we move on. Did anybody do more to put over NXT and that women's championship than Becky Lynch?
Oh, absolutely not. That's well, it also gave it a big time feel having Jade Cargill come out and sit on the throne to watch the match.
Right.
The whole spectacle for that night was an absolutely just tremendous. I also have to give it up to Fallon Henley because, oh my God, did you not think that there were two Tiffany Strattons there?
Yeah. I do want to talk about one other thing. I do want to talk about one other person on this Halloween Havoc card. Lexis King, the former Brian Pillman Jr. debuted. And AJ, I got to say, I thought it was a little underwhelming. Like, I'm happy that he's there, and maybe this will go somewhere. But in terms of a debut, it was kind of just a basic match. He got his win.
His debut was a basic match. His work rate is average at best. We should be talking about Trick Williams and freaking Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov and not wasting our breath on this second-generation bastard.
He's been very disrespectful to his dad, too, which I find.
Yeah, and that's why and I know he's playing a character. Don't get me wrong. But let me tell you something. At this point in his career, he couldn't fill 1/3 of Brian Pillman's jockstrap.
You're here first, folks. But you know who could fill Brian Pillman's jockstrap? The man called Sting, baby. The Stinger. Woo! He's had a hell of a career, and we're going to talk today about Sting's top 5 greatest matches of all time. But real quick, AJ, before we do, what about it? Ric Flair was the gift for Sting on AEW Dynamite. Were you surprised? And did you love the way it was built? Tony Khan, a gift that's never been given to somebody before.
Or a gift that's been given to every woman in the 80s up and down the east coast of the U.S. Woo, Space Mountain. Great. It's like we talked about this a few weeks ago. We're at a point now where it's only a matter of time before Rick embarrasses himself on TV. When Christian was talking about, oh, maybe you'll make it him. I'm sitting there going, oh, God, please, no. Oh, God, no. That's,
everybody thought Christian was going to talk about Ric Flair dying. And he said, I know Ric Flair's not dead, but I also know there's no God because he would have been dead 20 years ago.
Christian is fantastic. Anybody who doesn't think that Christian is one of the best heels right now it's either him or Dominic who are getting the best heat. The difference is he earns his heat a little bit more than Dominic. Dominic gets heat before he even says anything. However, when it comes to seeing Ric Flair, he basically gave him an empty bottle of gin, for Christ's sakes. What a horrible present. Why not roll out Lex Luger in his freaking wheelchair? Maybe he could be his partner, too.
Let's get to this list. AJ, I know you've already had some tallies on your end. Keep a tally for me, too. All right, we got John White. That's right. He's contributing to the Working Fans podcast here. He's got AJ Styles at Bound for Glory 09. He's got Hogan Starrcade 97. He's got Teaming with Darby versus Team Taz Revolution 2022. He's got Angle at Hardcore Justice 2011, and he's got Samoa Joe at Bound for Glory 08. Thank you for the list, John. And by the way, John was probably one of the more in-depth lists in terms he gave us the events and everything.
Yeah, my guy didn't do that. I've got John Adolph. He did it for two of them. He's got Ric Flair, Great American Bash 1990. He's got Great Muta, Great American Bash 1989. But then he just put versus Iron Anderson, versus AJ Styles, versus Kurt Angle. So any date you want to choose that he wrestled those guys, we'll go with.
I will say, I started thinking about this. Well, just to pull away for a second here. When you look at Sting's career, it's really arguable that his greatest run might have been in TNA.
Oh, absolutely. So my favorite Sting character is TNA Joker Sting.
Yeah, sure.
I love the Joker character. I know people love Crow Sting. Some people love Surfer Sting. To me, when he really defined his character and really came into his own was later in his career as the Joker.
Yeah, and we'll get back to this list too. I know Kurt Angle's talked about this. He's actually spent the majority of his career in TNA, and people didn't really realize that. So with TNA coming back, I do have to say it is interesting that when you really think about it, there's a lot of great stuff that happened there over the years.
Oh, absolutely.
But I have a list here from Parvez. Parvez has Hulk Hogan at Bound for Glory 2011. That's it. So there's your match.
Wow.
And I'm going to go with Louis Gregory, since that was such a quick one. Louis Gregory's got Vader match was fantastic. He had multiple great matches with Flair, had some good matches with Luger. His match with Seth Rollins was pretty good, sans the injury. There you go. So just some stuff.
I've got George Chamberlain. Don't call him Wilt, though. It's George. 5 matches with 5 different opponents he puts. Sting versus Flair. Sting versus Rick Rude. I wonder if he's talking about the one where he ended Rick Rude's career. Sting versus Cactus Jack. Sting versus Hollywood Hogan. Sting versus the mighty Lex Luger.
Lex Luger, one of the all-time greats. All right, I got Joey Britton here. He's got versus Flair at Clash of Champions 88. That's interesting. 88. Was that? I guess it was. Yeah, it was. Cactus Jack, Beach Blast 92. Sting Squadron versus the Dangerous Lions, Wrestle War 92. That I consider that the greatest war games of all time. Versus DDP on Nitro in 99. I will say this. I remember the match he's talking about because what I really liked about this, and AJ knows I wasn't always the biggest Sting fan around this time, but DDP goes for the diamond cutter out of corner. Sting counters with a reverse DDT. Absolutely one of my favorite counters of all time. I got to give the man his due. And he also has versus Hogan, Starrcade 97, because of the build and the match leading to the last 3 minutes of the match. Remove the last 3 minutes of that match, and it's in talks for one of the greatest angles of all time.
So I've got Friday Phil. Phil, I'm actually going to save his first one for last because I think it's going to pop you. He's got 1990 versus Ric Flair, 1992 versus Big Van Vader, 1997 versus Hulk Hogan. By the way, I disagree with that. The angle versus Hulk Hogan was fantastic. The match itself was absolute dog shit. Yeah,
well, he's saying the last 3 minutes of the match, but
that's not what my guy's saying. My guy just said 1997 versus Hulk Hogan.
Right.
And so 2015 versus Triple H. And now here's his first one. 1987.
Yes.
He teams with Chris Adams versus Eddie Gilbert and Terry Taylor.
Yeah, what? I actually remember this. Yeah, I saw this guy's list come up just for that reason that stuck out with me. I actually had mentioned to him that was a deep cut. And you had to love that Mid-South / UWF time period where Sting was involved. Yeah, that's a great cut.
If I remember correctly, that's when Sting broke away from Eddie Gilbert because at first he was with Eddie Gilbert.
Right, he was part of Hot Stuff International there. Yep,
absolutely.
All right, we got more. We got Zach St. John here. Zach St. John, he always comes with the list. He's got Sting and Flair versus Muta and Funk in the cage. I believe that's one of the first Halloween Havocs. I think that's where Muta put out the fire in the cage too with the mist, which was great. Sting versus Flair at the first Clash of Champions. Sting
I still
and
get
Luger,
choked up hearing about that.
Sting and Luger versus the Steiner brothers at Super Brawl. That's a fun tag match. Sting and Cactus at Bash at the Beach. A lot of people love that one. Sting and Steamboat versus Flair and Austin from Saturday Night. I love seeing all these guys in the ring. Not the best match, but a real cool to see. And then
What I'm hearing is Saturday. Oh, sorry.
And then I got Jake St. John. I'm just going to add him because all he said was, I've been thinking about Sting matches, and I'm going to have to double check, but I'm definitely going to go with his matches with Vader and Rude. The War Games, I'm going to have to look up more specific matches. He never got back to me, but I just wanted to include he was looking. He liked those Vader Rude matches, and he liked that War Games match. So maybe a point.
This just in. I just got a text from Jake St. John. He actually says his favorite ones of all time are anything where he teamed with the Warrior as the Blade Runners. So there you go.
All right.
I've got Tony Strong.
Strong.
Sting versus Muta. Sting versus Flair. And Sting versus Vader. Now, that was a short one, so you know what? Let's bring the big man in. I've got Randy Osga.
Woo.
He's got Sting versus AJ Styles, TNA BFG 2009. Sting versus Ric Flair, WCW Clash of Champions 88. Sting versus Vader, WCW Starrcade 1992. Sting versus William Regal, WCW Great American Bash 96.
I guess.
And number 5, Sting, Darby Allin, CM Punk versus MJF, FTR, AEW, Dynamite Holiday Bash, December 22nd, 2021.
Sting also questions William Regal's or Steve Regal manhood in the leading up to that, which I don't think he'd be getting away with today. But yes, I do remember the build for that, and they had a fine match. All right, so what do we got left here? I got Steven Lorelli Jr. He's got Muta, Jeff Jarrett, Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles. So more just opponents.
Wait a minute. This just in from producer Joe.
Uh-huh.
I've got Flair Clash 1. Great Muta, Power Hour, 9/189. Vader, Starrcade, 92. Angle, Bound for Glory, 2007. And Jeff Jarrett, Bound for Glory, 2006. Jake Rule in effect. He also wants the War Games.
I also got somebody outside my house right now trying to get in. Fun fact. All right. They're going to have to wait. I got my list here. All right. I got the War Games, 92. I got Flair from the first Clash. I got Flair from Great American Bash, 1990. I got Triple H at Mania because it's about time Sting had wrestled at Mania, and I just want to include that. And I got Kurt Angle, 2007, Bound for Glory.
So my first two, I'm going Clash of Champions, Sting versus Flair, Clash Champions 1. I've got Sting versus the Great Muta from the Great American Bash 1989. To me, that was one of my favorite matches in that time period. I love the Great Muta, love Sting, so to see them go face to face was fantastic. I've got Sting and Ric Flair versus Dick Slater and Great Muta. I don't know if you remember this one or not. It was Clash of Champions 8 Fall Brawl. And what it was just a slobber knocker from go. Anytime you have Dick Slater in a match, it's going to be buck wild. Then I've got Sting versus Flair at the Great American Bash 90.
Yep.
And I went against you. I picked the War Games. I didn't pick your silly War Games. I picked Sting,
right.
Brian Pillman, and the Steiner Brothers versus the Four Horsemen, Ric Flair, Larry Zbyszko, Barry Windham, and Sid Vicious.
Yep.
That was such a fun one to see Brian Pillman get his ass bounced off the top of the cage by Sid Vicious. Absolutely phenomenal. So eat that, Alexis King.
Yeah, rest the soul to the great Lexus King Sr. All right, we need to pick a winner here.
Now, AJ, do you have the tallies?
Oh, no, I didn't keep a tally at all. But I'm going to go with you real quick here. That's to me, I think that the ones that came up the most, and maybe you'll disagree with me, are because the problem is, most people didn't put what the actual matches were. They put who the opponents were.
Right.
So they didn't actually follow what the rules were.
Flair Clash.
Yeah. So to me, it's Flair at the Clash. You got to go more with opponents. Muda showed up a lot. Cactus Jack didn't show up anywhere near as much as I thought he was going to.
But
So to me, it's Flair, Muda, and then we need one more, Big Van Vader.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna bump your Vader. Actually, no, I'm gonna bump
now,
Muda.
that Muda match that I watched.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna. That I watched was a lead up to the cage match.
Right.
That Funk was included in. So like there was a Funk interference. Gary Hart had to get in there, but I see why Muda gets bounced.
Yeah, it's the power hour. I'm not keeping the power hour.
I agree with you. To me, the big things that are quintessential Sting in that time period, especially, you could go if you were doing Angle, then absolutely Hollywood Hogan.
Right.
But to me, the Hogan match, which is what we were doing as matches,
Right.
was just the drizzling shits.
I'm gonna I was gonna say I'll put Sting and Cactus as my number 3 though for Beach Blast '92 because they did tear it up, and some people when they did pick Cactus, you noticed that was the match everybody said. They knew the one. It was Falls Count Anywhere.
See, yours, I think on your list you had people say matches. Yeah. I didn't have a single person say Cactus Jack's match.
So we'll go to number 3. You said Vader. So
the reason why I was thinking Vader was because that World Championship match he had versus Vader, very similar to Ric Flair, put him on the map and also put Vader on the map at the same time as being an ass kicker because he came in and kicked the shit out of Sting.
So why don't we go with Vader? I'll even say the strap match, I believe, was from one of the Super Brawls. Give me number 2. And
the White Castle of Fear match?
And number 1, I think we have to go with the match that basically put Sting on the map. Everybody said it. Everybody knows it. It was Sting versus Flair. 45-minute draw. I think Flair tried to say it was 55 minutes this week, but 45-minute draw against WrestleMania, the first ever Clash of Champions. I think that's our winner.
Well, people didn't see the first 10 minutes. It was backstage drinking.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling